guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my second model vlog where I just wanted to talk about something which it's interesting to me, and hopefully it'll be interesting to you so that you guys can leave a comment and let me know what you think. What I want to talk about right now is detailing, and not just regular detailing, but really getting into adding small details that no one will ever see. I call it hyper detailing because, it just sounds cool. So, hey, that's a term I came up with. And is it worth it? Because it can extend, in my case, it extends the build time of any project by probably 2 to 3 times because I'm constantly adding a detail and changing things. And that extends how much time it takes me to finish one because of the fact that I like detailing. I like adding small little bits and pieces here and there that just add a little something extra to the kit. I rarely ever build just box stock um, because I'm always just looking to add something a little more. The gears are turning into what can I do to make this just a little bit different or to add just a little more detail to it, which usually requires doing a lot of research into the vehicles that I build and figuring out what it is I want to do. Let me show you guys a couple of examples. Now, this first example is an engine I built for a project, the 1985 Pontiac Fiero GT. Now, when I did this, I decided I wanted to put every detail I could into this engine. And seeing as I have a real Fiero sitting in my garage, I had a perfect vehicle to copy. And when I was done, I realized I put a whole lot of stuff in here nobody's ever gonna see, which started with making actual mounting brackets for the alternator and the AC compressor, which the kit did not bring because it just bugs me to see those things floating in the air. Now, you can't see them when they're in the car, but I just had to put them in. The next thing I did was put emissions equipment in the car, such as the hated EGR valve and flex pipe, which goes to the intake, which all Fiero's owners know are a constant source of vacuum leaks, and the valves never work right to begin with. Since I was on a roll, I decided, well, let me just detail out the heat shields under the car with bare metal foil, as it really looks good as it's going to look for a heat shield, and added a lot of detail down there. But again, it's something that hardly anyone will ever see. And here's where I got really silly with the detailing, where I fabricated map pockets very similar to what the real car has. But once you put the interior in the car and close everything up, you can barely see the map pockets. Almost wasn't worth the effort. This is my point with this whole conversation. Do you guys think it's really worth the time to put details in that only you will know are there? Such as on this Mazda RX-7, I installed coil springs because I just thought they would look cool. And, I know they're there, so I like looking at them from time to time. And then I decided to completely detail out the shock absorbers in the rear of the car. As you can see them installed here, no one's going to know they're there unless you actually flip the car upside down or pull the wheels off it to take a look. And again, the question is, well, is it really worth putting all that effort into detailing all this stuff? As I actually painted them up to look like the Koni shocks, which were really popular during the days of those cars. Now here again, for the Starsky & Hutch Ford Gran Torino, I added brackets to hold the alternator and I think the power steering pump. It was just the fact that they were floating out in space, and I really hate that look. So I decided to do this. Now, all of this takes time, which could be better spent working on other parts of the models, which are going to be really visible, such as the body, the wheels, the chassis, just stuff that everybody's going to see if you take it to a show and people are really going to be attracted to. Will you really notice an alternator bracket or AC bracket or power steering pump bracket when a car is sitting at a show and you're looking it over? Maybe. Some people might, but most won't. So, is it worth the time and effort to do? Take, for example, our next photo. Here's the Ford Gran Torino dashboard. Now, as you can see, the police radio is underneath it. Now, what I did was that I created a coiled wire for the handset for the radio. And then I actually used steel mesh to mimic the speaker cover of the radio and of the microphone. Now, I was very pleased with myself when I did all of this. I was very happy. I mean, it looked really cool. But then I realized when I put it in the car, you can just barely make out the radio, much less the coiled wire or the grills. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about the details that will stand out. If you're at a show and you have the model opened up and there's all sorts of interesting things to look at inside the car, such as in the interiors or in the engine compartments. I'm not talking about that. What I'm referring to is the stuff that you will never see, that no one will ever pay any attention to but you. Perfect example is this build of mine of the AMT Opel GT. I actually installed a battery and a brake booster and master cylinder assembly that mimicked the real car. I researched the car and found that the battery was installed in the front and that the brake master cylinder was also installed in the front of the car. Now, once you put these things in and put the hood on and install the body, I found that you can just barely make it out behind the radiator support when you take the hood off the car. I mean, just barely you can see that there's something in there. So, really, was it worth it? All the extra time I spent putting that together, bending the photo etched battery tray, sourcing the brake master cylinder. Then I went ahead and built the optional 6-cylinder engine that came with the kit and added some plumbing for the carburetor to the fuel pump. This was never going to go in the car. So why'd I do it? Don't know. But I just had to do it. The parts were there and I had to build it and had to detail the whole thing out. Here we have another prime example. This is the engine from the Revell C7R race car. Now, this thing is barely visible once it's in the car, but it was so nicely made and had so many details molded into it that I just had to go in and highlight as many of them as I could. And once you put it in the car, you can't even see a quarter of all the work that went into it. So I took all that time, put it all in there, when I could have just sprayed it one color, put it in the engine compartment. Nobody would ever know. Now, the interior was a whole nother story. This is visible as I left the body loose so that I could take it off and you can just display it with the interior exposed and all the details visible. I even went as far as making a 5-point harness for it. And I mean, I was very, very, very happy with the way this interior came out so that I could display it. But as I was saying before, if you look at the chassis with the body removed, how much of the engine do you really see? So how much of that was actually worth doing? Well, I don't know about you guys, but to me, all of it was. One of the biggest thrills I have on building models is detailing. Whether it's fully detailing a chassis, like on the RX-7 here, or adding wiring harnesses to the engine compartment just to fill up empty spaces so you don't have anything that's just standing at like looking like it's missing something. To custom interiors here, or no matter what the scale, from 125th to 132nd, just putting as much detail in as possible. Adding wiring, adding plumbing, all sorts of stuff just to make it look as real as you can. And here's another chassis. This is the part of the model hobby that really gets me going the most. I enjoy putting as much detail into a smaller package as possible. This also involves painting, learning new techniques, shading, coloring, trying new paints, always expanding the skills, always trying something new just to add a little more detail to whatever it is you're building, whether it's a car, a mobile suit, starships, whatever it is. For me, the thrill and the challenge of modeling is to get the most out of every model that I build. And yeah, sometimes it takes a lot longer than it should to build them, but it's just for me is much more satisfying to stretch my skills as far as I can. And I'm no pro, I just enjoy model building. But for me, the challenge is just that, stretching my skills as far as I can to seeing how much more I can improve or how much further I can take my path in the hobby. So that's pretty much it for this little model vlog, hobby rant, whatever you want to call it. Just me talking about the hobby because it's one of my favorite things in the world. And just having to ask that question to you guys. How do you feel about all this excessive detailing? Let's have a little conversation. Is detailing as big a thrill to you guys as it is to me? Or do you guys just like to get them built and up on the shelf quick as possible? Let me know.